Hi, I am Zach,
And I'm Ben.
and welcome to the Movie Vault. Today we are on part 2 of our Paul Newman arc. We are going from 19... What year was...
1961.
And then this is
67.
Okay, I was going to say that, but I said it way too late.
So we got a 6-year jump.
Yes, and Paul Newman doesn't really age that much. He kind of
No.
still looks the same. And today we're going to review Cool Hand Luke, which is an American prison drama film directed by Stuart Rosenberg, obviously starring Paul Newman and featuring George Kennedy, who actually won an Oscar for his performance in this film.
Great
We'll get into
performance. Great performance from George Kennedy.
and starring alongside J.D. Cannon, Robert Drivus, Lou Antonio Strother Martin, and Joe Van Fleet, who I really like. So it blew away the Academy Awards in many areas, especially in nominations where Paul Newman was nominated for an Oscar for this film. But this is probably one of the most legendary Paul Newman films, and it's right early on in his career. Paul Newman's career probably went 20 more years after this until the late 80s, early 90s. No, not early 90s. I don't think so.
I think early 2000s if he's in Road to Perdition.
Oh, you're right. Okay. His good career went into the 90s at least, and then obviously into the 2000s. But Cool Hand Luke is often the film that is quoted, shown, or just thought of when people think of Paul Newman. Just the guy who's smiling in the prison, no cares in the world, never makes a plan, he says, just going by life. And that's the Paul Newman that we know. And really, if you think about this film compared to the last film, Paul Newman's character is pretty similar, pretty obsessed. I would say there's a little bit different characteristics, such as the first guy would plan, the second guy wouldn't plan. I forget what the first guy's name is, and then this character is obviously Luke. But yeah, so Cool Hand Luke, prison film where Paul Newman's character, Luke Jackson, goes into prison for just destroying municipal property, which are parking meters, and when you hit them, it's a violation, which actually has imagery that we'll talk about later. And he gets sentenced to 2 years in a labor camp in Florida, and he's alongside these other people like Dragline and other characters, and they are pretty much just, it's like the movie Holes almost, where they're just making roads, except it's not holes, but then in some parts of the movie they actually do holes as well.
Yeah.
Where it's like the labor that they're doing, it's in the hot, really, really hot desert in Florida, and it's just hard work, pretty gruesome. It's all men out there. So when a girl walks by, it gets a little weird.
Yeah.
And this film, I mean, that's the premise of the film, is he's in there, and it's the shenanigans that come out, and he escapes a few times, and it's really a character film, I think, and showing the inner workings of this character. His mom shows up, and it shows how he is the way that he is and why he has his ideology, and we can get into all that. But really, if you're thinking big picture of this film, why did Stuart Rosenberg make this film this way? This was during the Vietnam War, and it's kind of a reactionary film to that, especially the line where, what's the line that he says? He's like, what's the most famous line? He's like, what we've got here is a failure to communicate.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah, that's how the warden says it. And then at the end, Paul Newman's character says it to the warden.
Yep.
And to everybody else. And it's just a great line. So it's actually in the top 100 most memorable movie lines, ranked at number 11.
It's a significant line.
That's the American Film Institute too.
And notably, this was based off of a book, and that line was not in the book.
Yeah, they added it to the screenplay.
Added it to the screenplay.
One of the screenwriters was afraid that a warden wouldn't know what those words are, but then they looked at the schooling, and the warden looked at the curriculum, and they're like, oh, they use big words in the curriculum for warden training, so this warden might actually know how to say that. Isn't that hilarious?
That's funny. Yeah, it's a great movie, and it definitely seems like, so we talked a little bit about the codes, like the Hays Code and the Hustler, and how the guy who made the Hustler kind of bent the rules a little bit so that it could get made, because it dealt with darker themes than we're typically seen in a movie of that kind. Mm-hmm. But now we're in the late 1960s, and a podcast I was listening to was even making the assertion that this was one of the the earliest anti-establishment movies to like start to bend the rules of what you were allowed to do, because there's very strict rules on how you portrayed law and order and prison and these things. And this movie had a lot to say about kind of sticking it to the man. And Luke is an interesting character because he clearly does not want to conform to the laws of society, but he also doesn't really have a strong ideological reason that's apparent that is that way, other than he just doesn't want to live in a way that people are telling him to.
Yeah. He's definitely pretty nonchalant, and he even says he never makes plans, as I said. And throughout this film, you can kind of see that he's really just winging life. Every choice he makes is pretty spontaneous. Aside from a few of his escapes, he obviously planned those, but it's like the idea of him being able to plan that came up last minute, where in the end scene, he steals all the keys to the cars, and he's like, oh yeah, you faked it. You faked being broken down by these men. And he's like, no, I didn't fake it. I was actually broken down by these men. But then I just decided to escape. So it's just like, okay, this guy's just living life. And that's been his mindset. And if you think about his conversation with his mom and his upbringing, his dad being gone, a lot of this starts to make sense, where he's always just been getting by. And he realized that God did not, from his point of view, God did not give him a good set of cards. And he wants to just play the cool hand that he's been given. And the line is, sometimes nothing is a real cool hand, is what he says. So then they're like, oh, he's Cool Hand Luke, that's where the title.
Yeah. And obviously, he's got the poker hand, which was worth nothing. He plays it cool. So there's lots of different description. He's very unlike his prison mates. He's really set against Dragline, who's like the characteristic macho like guy in prison who's like the leader, and he even beats him up pretty badly at the start. And it's interesting because Luke seems to take it, but he also doesn't take it personally, because he and Dragline kind of Dragline starts looking up to Luke is one thing, because he's so charismatic and he lives his life so nonchalantly in a way that Dragline envies and respects, and he starts to kind of follow Luke to the point where he even escapes with Luke. But then we have the end Judas scene where Dragline ends up betraying.
So you read that too? How it's a lot of Gethsemane in there.
Yep, lots of biblical references to Luke. Although, it's interesting that it has such a biblical basis, because it's littered with references to the Bible and relative like Christian imagery throughout. But it's hard to look at Luke and be like, this guy is supposed to be a Christ-like figure, because that people make the argument for that, but he's not really. He's not really leading people. People are following him because they see the way that he decides to live as attractive, but he's not making any sort of appeal to people that they need to live a certain way. You know what I mean? He's just,
no, you're right.
In fact, at some points, he's just like, leave me alone. Like when he comes back after the second escape and he's made the magazine, he's like, just leave me alone. I don't want you to be, he's not handling things. So in some ways I don't
well, in all ways he's not, because he doesn't have a plan. Christ came down and had a plan.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really see, unless it's some sort of like, in the context of prison, this is the closest thing he represents, like an alternate lifestyle or alternate life that they could live.
Alternative lifestyle.
It's not a strong analogy. So he's the closest thing they have to a savior, is what I'm saying.
No, it's not a good analogy, but that's what they're intentionally trying to do in this movie. Yeah. So it's not like we're drawing off of things. A lot of times there's some cross imagery. There's a part where he lays down almost in a crucifixion pose.
He sings Plastic Jesus.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things like that. And he even prays to God at the end, asking God, why have you given me these things? He even, when he's in the rain, is like tempting God, like, do what you will to me. And then all that leads to him digging those ditches and filling them back up again. And then at the end, has that Garden of Gethsemane moment where he's praying to God, like, what's next? What's going to happen next? And then Judas, whatever, Dragline comes in after he got caught and, turns him in. And there's so much imagery, which is why I always say, the best story is the Bible. And
that's true, because you just read the Bible and it's like much better story, much better character.
Definitely
like can't even
stars.
compare.
Yeah. But so you can pull apart. Yeah, Dragline was kind of forced into that, whereas we don't know if maybe Judas was, but Judas really did it for financial gain. And Cool Hand, and Luke wasn't really good at all, which is why I don't like the analogy whatsoever. I think it's blasphemous. It's horrible, but at the same time, that's what they were going for, just to show like that Luke really is a world changer. Kind of in the same way that Jesus, Jesus revolution. This is the 70s, Jesus revolution. Maybe that's what influenced it. And this is also the sexual revolution. There's so many revolutions going on in this time. The anti-establishment thing really came in. I will rebuttal. People said this is one of the earliest anti-establishment films. I would say it goes back to the 20s. I would say it goes back to Adam and Eve, but I would say it goes back to the 20s. We did the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Where a lot of that is like surrealism, and that's already reactionary films to World War One. Not World War One. Was it World War One?
It was World War One.
Yeah, okay, because it was the 20s, and it was just like, we don't like the war, so we're gonna make sure that we're going against the man. And we talked about
I guess
that.
When they say that, though, they probably are meaning that in sort of an American context, where like think about a movie like Patton or something that's like, I guess maybe not Patton, because I haven't watched it. So I shouldn't try to make an argument based on a movie I haven't watched. But movies that are very like, they're describing U.S. foreign policy in a certain way that's like, or even more exploitation movies that are like pro U.S. military, pro, all the things that we've done, depicting the U.S. as heroes in the world. Not saying that that's necessarily bad. It's just that's the standard for what movies were like. And then all of a sudden we have these Russian movies that are like, look at the things that are falling apart, or like, here's some people who have ideas, or what we're saying about Luke is that he's not a good person. There's not really a lot of redeemable qualities about him. People are following him. Like what Dragline has a couple more years he could have, and now he's probably going to be in jail for longer. I guess he gets out eventually because we see him telling the story. But like, he's not necessarily leading people in a direction that's like beneficial to them. Yeah, he's like an anti-hero. He's maybe not the most anti-hero of anti-heroes, because there's definitely anti-heroes now, like Taxi Driver, for example, where people who do worse things, but. There's Deadpool, and that's the first one that comes to mind. It's leading into that idea that you don't have to make movies just about the people who we perceive as good or as morally correct, but specifically in the American context, not like Europe has already at this point been doing all kinds of things that are anti-establishment. They're usually ahead of us on that.
Yeah, and we're just catching up, even though,
So, I mean, Ingmar Bergman, any movie I've watched is like, he's questioning religion, wrestling with religion, or, something, or the old style of how people thought in Europe versus the new modernists style of how people think. Like, there's a lot of wrestling going on.
Yeah, and then postmodern, and then postmodern that we're in right now. And then there's just irony. I feel like we're just in irony right now.
Yeah.
Everything has to be some meta joke,
Yeah. The new Deadpool versus Wolverine. Like,
it's just
we know we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe
and let's
now.
connect everything and bring back. I'm not going to spoil that, but there's a really cool thing. They actually, Ben, you want to hear some Marvel news that someone just texted me a minute ago?
Yeah.
So they're instead of doing the Kang Dynasty films, they're going to do Doctor Doom. And I want you to guess who is playing Doctor Doom. Who do you think it is? You're thinking.
I want to make Caitlyn Jenner.
No. I promise you, it's gonna. This is crazy.
Okay, I believe you. It's crazy.
Give one more guess.
Barry Keoghan.
Robert Downey Jr. is playing. Isn't that crazy? Connor just texted me. Connor was on our what episode was he on? He was on A Quiet Place.
Quiet Place.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Is this
No Way Home?
Or No Way Home? Yeah. Is this confirmed?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
this was Hall H was today. Isn't that crazy? This is what they're
I
doing.
believe it though.
But I think it's going to be wildly successful now, just because he's there.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't get rid of Robert Downey Jr. forever.
He is the face
just
of
not going
Marvel.
to happen.
Anyway,
He's like the Paul Newman of Marvel.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to take away from this episode at all. Because Ben, what did you rate this on Letterboxd?
I gave this 4 out of 5, I believe, and that was coming from. I might honestly give it. I watched this, like a year and a half ago, and I don't think it quite hit the way that it did this time that I watched. I really enjoyed watching it this time. Like the sequential form. It just feels like it's not like a movie that has like a central plot, something or like a mystery that's like driving the whole plot. It's just like a sequence of events that happens. And I really enjoyed that this time. You're like, okay, there's the poker scene. There's he's eating a bunch of eggs. Some of them are like, where
are we going?
Yeah, what's happening? And then the escapes start happening, and you're like, okay. And his mom dying is like a key part of but his relationship with his mom seems weird. And
I want to get
there's
into
a lot of mystery about him, and then he's this war hero who's like now. So is there an element of like PTSD? So there's a lot of like, and then I think like I noticed the George Kennedy dragline performance a lot more in this movie, and like being like, wow, that guy, he really like lit up. Anytime he was on screen, it was like
he stole the show.
Yeah, like lightning rod
so
performance.
You just created 3 timelines I want to go down. So the first one is the idea of just being encapsulated by the film without having a care of what direction it's going in. I think that was intentional. I think that's Cool Hand Luke's ideology. You know, the whole idea of the movie is like, we're just going to go along for the ride and see what happens, and hopefully it ends somewhere good. And this kind of ends, for us, the audience, like in a good spot, because the film is great. It's groundbreaking. It's awesome. But Cool Hand Luke, for Luke, I keep calling him Cool Hand Luke. For Luke, it doesn't turn out good. And that's just where his ideology leads. And no, that's the first timeline. The second one is he comes from a pretty broken family. He didn't really know his dad. He kind of mentions that. He comes from a mother who showed him favor over his other brother, apparently, and she said that she had a feeling for Luke that she didn't have a feeling for the other kid. And she even says this line that was kind of sad, that was like something along the lines of, no pun intended, you get to a point where you try as a parent, and if it doesn't work, then you just kind of stop feeling and you're just numb or something like that. And then you just kind of do your thing, and now when something bad happens to your kid, you don't feel anything. And she kind of says that about Luke. And because Luke just keeps making mistake after mistake. And Luke understands, and he's there for his mom, and he really does love her, because obviously her death affects him. And she is leaving the estate to his other brother out of responsibility and just guilt of showing favoritism to Luke. And then she's talking about dying, and Luke says he's going to miss her, and that's pretty much that. And it's just, Luke comes from a family that didn't really have good structure, and it's kind of leaving him in this life of perpetual, what's the word I want to use?
Lack of structure.
Yeah, perpetual lack of structure, yeah. And it's sad. And then there's also the element of he was shot. He shot people. He was shot. He said he had a couple Purple Hearts, and he was in war. And I don't know. He's been going from place to place. He's never had a home. He's never had like a wife. So that's how he's been.
He's cutting down municipal parking meters. Like, and I guess at the beginning scene, it kind of appears that he's drunk.
Yeah, he said he was under the influence. That was in his charges.
So he definitely has no, because that's the only reason you could really explain why you would do that. It's a very odd thing. Now, was he trying to steal the money out of the parking meters?
It did not look like it.
It looked like he was just trying to destroy it, and they didn't charge him with that either, because that was initially my thought. I forgot about that scene in the beginning, and I was like, is he trying to like cut these off and just take the money out, or what? What is the plan here? But there isn't really a plan, which is consistent with his character.
If you noticed that whenever he hit it, it said violation, and then the traffic light was red, and then later on in the movie it turns green when he's escaping. There's a green traffic light. And then at the end, when he's getting beaten and the Garden of Gethsemane scene comes in, it's red again. I just read this on Wikipedia for the But I mean, there's a lot of imagery with that. I'm just curious, like why combine Christian imagery with stoplight imagery. I don't know, because those are the two major imageries in the film that like kind of are tent poles to understand what's happening.
Is there necessarily a reason now? The religious imagery could be the author of the book. Like, I don't know what the book was like, but if there was strong Christian imagery in the book, I guess as a director you would just keep that along. I guess some of the decisions, like him laying in the crucifix posture, I guess that could be added in unless it was a description in the book. The stoplights, I don't like. Again, I've never read the book, so it could be in the book, but I would guess that'd be more likely. It's just a simple thing that you can use as a symbol that's like readily available.
Sure.
If you're a smart,
there's already so much history with it.
If you're a smart director, you know how to pull those things.
Well, it's kind of like using Robert Downey Jr. with all his history, just plugging him in somewhere and using all of his fan service to make money.
Exactly. It's just like that.
Yeah.
The fan service for traffic lights, they've been around since cars have been around pretty much.
Yeah.
And people understand them. They have almost universal. Anywhere that there's automobiles, pretty much universsul.
What about language? In the English language.
In the English language in the Western world.
Yeah.
So, it could be simply that. I also got this feeling that people, I've heard the comment like people don't think Stuart Rosenberg he ended up doing like Amityville Horror. He did like genre stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this one stands out like significantly among like the rest of his work.
Yeah.
But I think if he was like the one coming up with these ideas, I think he's probably a better director than people give him credit for. He's never going to be somebody who's like, oh, I'm a huge, Stuart Rosenberg fan. I mean, you'll probably meet a few people who are like that, but the average, movie buff is probably not going to be like, oh, my favorite director is Stuart Rosenberg. But, I think he was more than capable director.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even just
it also goes to show it's not just Paul Newman's performance is amazing in this movie, but it's also paired with George Kennedy's performance and with really good direction. Like, I don't think Rosenberg is holding this movie back.
Oh, for sure. And I would even add in the Conrad Hall did the cinematography.
Yeah.
And these desert scenes were beautiful. I mean, some of these scenes where they're just whacking away at the weeds on the side of the road with those, whatever those were, and then those shots just with the trucks and them. My favorite scene in the whole film was them like just working really hard to get done early so they'd have time, right? Just kind of to be funny and like get at the guards, where they're shoveling on the road after they spray
where they're racing,
and that was an awesome scene. There's just those shots like to show the upper view of them doing it from the top, the view from
sunglasses getting run over by the car at the end of the movie.
That was great as well. Even that shot of like zooming in on the sunglasses to show the truck moving away. I mean, and a lot of them were framed pretty well. Like this, Wes Anderson would like this, and I mean, a lot of this. It was just a beautiful film. Every single shot was beautiful. Even the grave scenes were cool. Not grave, the trench holes that he had to dig back and forth. And
a good, really good soundtrack too. And like there was a lot of like spirituals and like again the Plastic Jesus song in the middle, which I think is just like a folk song. It can't be that old of a folk song because it talks about there being a plastic Jesus on the dashboard of a car. So it can't be like 100 years old, but it's some sort of song that was probably from the 50s or 40s.
Yeah.
And it just fits perfectly. And the light strumming on the banjo by Paul Newman, you don't think of him as like a singer, but it just works so perfectly.
Yeah.
And so there's not really too many scenes in this movie that you're like, that scene wasn't that good or it didn't hold importance.
So going back, I gave it 5 stars.
I know, I saw.
You did?
Yeah.
So did you think that was a little much?
No, I don't think it's a little much. I think it's a great movie. So
I loved it. The second half, the first half, you know that meme you had me in the first half. The first half of the film was pretty solid. I would have given it 4 stars. I think the second half, when it got into his character and when he actually breaks down, that was the moment where I was like, this is great. Yeah. They broke his morale. They broke his spirit. Everything about him is just kissing this guy's foot. And it's so sad to watch that and how easy it is to just break someone's morale, just making them dig a hole back and forth and just not feeding them and crushing them. And people are stealing his food, And It was a tough scene to watch, but it also was great because it shows how, well, one, obviously Paul Newman's acting. Two, it shows that this ideology doesn't really always work. You know, there will be life circumstances that come in and topple your ideology, and you kind of have to adjust. And for him, he admitted that he really was broken in that moment, and he became like a teacher's pet after that. You know, he goes and gets that the snapping turtle out of the water. He's like, I got it for you, boss. You know, he's so excited. He's like a little schoolgirl. And then he steals the car. Like, he just has a plan to steal their cars from them. So
yeah, it doesn't completely break his spirit, but it certainly does in the moment. I mean, you just go back to your instinct to survive at that point. Mm-hmm. But I also took a step back and thought about it because you see the whole movie from Luke's perspective. And then you realize, like, this guy ran away twice. Mm-hmm. Like, and so the first time they put him in the box, they put him in the box after, actually, the cruel thing that they did, the thing that I disagreed with that the guards did significantly, was putting him in the box after his mom died.
So that's the only thing you disagree with?
I'm not saying that's the only thing I disagreed with. I'm saying right off the bat, like, if I'm just thinking about it objectively, I'm like, okay, that's cruelty. That's not, like, that's assuming the worst in an individual based on not really anything at that point.
I don't know that, Ben. I don't know. Devil's advocate. I think it makes sense. I mean, he said that people aren't thinking straight with their mom. I'm just thinking.
It's true, and I guess they are. The thing, they are outnumbered. So the guards are outnumbered. So they have to have this show of force and they're being tasked with this, and this is also their job. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, they're as much prisoners as the prisoners are. The only thing that makes them not prisoners is that they could quit, but they live there. They live.
I thought about that. I was like, when would that ever be?
They have to be out there at the same hours as the prison.
It's like kids camp all week. Yeah,
they don't have to actually do the work, but they're still standing out there.
I'm just thinking, like, when would that ever be worth it?
I mean, how much money would they have to pay you, and what's your plan? Like, how long are you working this job before you're like, I'll go settle down and have a family? I mean, I guess no, the guards have to be there because they have to guard 24. I mean, you can't stop guarding. Do any of them go home? Do they have shifts? I don't know how it works.
Maybe it's their passion, Ben. Maybe this is what they love.
It certainly seems like it. It seems like they've been conditioned by the prison as much as the prisoners.
Oh yeah, I mean, they also might just have a proclivity for ultraviolence, just to watch people get hurt.
Yeah, and certainly it's framed from that perspective. But like when he escapes digging the hole and all of that was, I mean, is it in good taste? But it works. So I mean, that's their argument. They're like,
it's science.
This works. Mm-hmm. But it also maybe their hypothesis is ruined by the fact that he escapes again, because it's supposed to be like they break his spirit and then he won't escape again. But he still does.
Yeah.
So,
and that is the difference between Luke and the others. Like
the others wouldn't even think about escaping.
Yeah, Luke is, and it's like the others are like, oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not doing it. Luke doesn't even. It's just weird, you know. Luke is that annoying kid that never tries and is really good at things, you know.
Yeah.
And doesn't care about it as well, and you're just so mad. Like, you try very hard to get an A out of math tests, and he doesn't try. He doesn't even study. He hardly takes the tests and does better than you. And Luke is that guy. And luckily, Dragline's humble enough to love him, because I would be really jealous. Normally, in other films, you have the jealous guy. You normally, like, if you think about it, like anybody who goes to prison and then becomes well liked, there's always like a rival gang that gets jealous that they're losing power. But Dragline's kind of the opposite. He's kind of like a very supportive guy who really loves. There's a line that he says,
like after he beats him up, you just need to beat him up once, and then he's like, "Now I'm your best friend."
One of my favorite lines was, "That's my darling Luke. He grins like a baby, but he bites like a gator." It's one of my favorite lines. And then the other one was when they were digging the trench or whatever, and the girl comes up and he says, "Anything so innocent and built like that just got to be named Lucille."
He gives her a name.
Yeah, he's like, Lucille, and then they make fan fiction.
Yeah, the one time they helped Luke escape, he's like having the prison warden read like a smut book or something like that. It's just like the warden. He's not the warden. He's like the chef / he keeps the house that they sleep in, and he's actually kind of chill with them. Like he's not like he's like tough, but he's still like he goes along with the egg eating contest.
Yeah,
and like actually helps them. He's like. Again, it's like they've been conditioned. Like they're as much passing the time with the prisoners as the prisoners are. Like,
oh yeah,
like the prisoners are like, most of the prisoners' mindset is, I'm here, I got to do my job, which I'm being punished for whatever. Some people were like manslaughter, more significant charges.
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't all equal charges. It's just different lengths of time.
Yeah.
But they all got to pass the time. So they got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And they come up with these random, poker.
Yeah.
They got their whole gambling ring, which is,
yeah.
a facet of many prison movies.
The egg thing took me off guard when they're like,
Yeah.
I mean, one day he's just like, well, how many eggs? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I can eat 50 eggs. It just came out of nowhere,
And you think, could somebody actually do that?
Yeah.
I don't think I could eat 50 eggs.
Probably.
And I feel like I could eat a lot, but
I mean,
50 hard-boiled eggs.
Isn't Joey Chestnut not allowed in that hot dog eating contest for hunts?
I think it was sort of a mutual thing, though, because he had to know. He took a sponsorship from a rival hot dog company, and he had to know that was going to happen. So I think he had just won so many times. Mm-hmm. He was like, and now he's doing this thing with Netflix on Labor Day against Kobayashi, or the other big. So I think he used it as a play to make more money, but he still looks like the victim. It's really smart, actually.
Tim Dillon just talked about this. He's just like, after you win 15 years, like there are people training out there who are like, I'm gonna beat his record. I mean, there's nobody that's ever gonna beat.
It's
Joey
like
Chestnut.
76 hot dogs in 10 minutes or something insane.
Oh my gosh!
And like the person who won this year, it was like not even close to what Joey Chestnut usually
His eating habits have to be horrible.
He specifically trains for it. I've like, you have to train your stomach to expand in a certain way. It's so weird. It's like actually like an athletic, and none of them look like overweight. Like it's not, being overweight I don't think is a benefit.
Well, no, I mean, you saw
your
Luke's
metabolism
belly.
is like slow, I assume, if you're overweight usually.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily mean you can eat more. It just means that probably Joey Chestnut can eat more food and maintain a certain weight, and somebody else would eat half the food and they would gain weight, unfortunately.
But he ate all. I mean, obviously it's fake, but he ate all 50, and he had his stomach kind of coming out a little bit. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of funny. And they're talking about like, oh, his stomach's actually going to explode. Your stomach can't take that. At least they were hard boiled,
Yeah, and Dragline was like shoving the last egg down his throat.
He really was trying to help his friend out. And also he had money on him, so that's part of it as well. But
I think it was interesting. I never thought about the fact that this was in Florida. It's an interesting setting. Yeah. But it like makes sense for a prison camp. And it also makes I watched 12 Angry Men, and lately I've been like, if a movie really strikes me, I've been like trying to seek out podcasts and different things to like listen to people's opinions. So the cinephiles, they're like the true students of film, like true film nerds, people who are actually like in the film industry. And so when they break down movies, it might not be the most humorous explanations or the most banter, but they really get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on.
Yeah.
And in 12 Angry Men, they talk about how they decided that the day was going to be really hot, and they were going to be hot, and the fan wasn't going to be working for a while. Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't spoil the movie too much, but it's hot in the room. And so you have to decide when you're making a movie what the weather's going to be. I've sort of, like, we've been doing this for 4 years, and now I'm thinking, oh wow, you actually have to think about like the staging, what season is it going to be, I mean, they could have filmed Cool Hand Luke in. I assume, again, it's based on a book, so I assume part of it's also the book was based in Florida. But still, you have freedom as a filmmaker that you can move it to Texas or wherever. Like, those all would have worked. But Florida is a very like humid state, and so like all the rain makes sense, but also like the really hot days make sense. So it fits really well because you can have these like sweltering hot days, and then you're getting drenched by the rain, like dangerous thunderstorms. And the like weather can be a amazing tool for a filmmaker.
Oh yeah, you're 100% right. And they did it pretty well. I don't think it was actually filmed in Florida, but it was supposed to represent. But they actually, like, in the road tarring sequence, they actually blacktopped an actual road for a mile.
That's crazy.
Just like these actors had to know what they were getting into when they were doing it. And I'm just looking at kind of these facts that I wrote down, but there were 200 boiled eggs made for the scene, which isn't that hard to do. That's one person's job for the day. And Paul Newman only ate 8 of them. So he did nothing. So he didn't have to do all 50. The rest of them were actually eaten by the crew and the cast. And then it says that this is what they wrote down in like the movie transcripts that there were extreme cases of farting the next day. But they said flatulence, but I'm translating. But I just thought that was funny that they included that. But
yeah, that is funny.
So some of it was filmed in California. Yeah, I don't think not a lot of it was filmed in Florida. I don't know if any of it was filmed in Florida, but yeah. It says passing.
I was trying to figure out who won Best Actor over
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman.
Yeah, you can look
awards.
Up Best Actor. What would you say? I mean, if you're going to compare, I think we have to look at Paul Newman's story. How would you say Paul Newman's acting compares to The Hustler?
I think there's a clear growth in his acting.
Okay. How so? And in what directions or levels or depths?
So Newman's acting, in some ways, like a lot of it is still there, like the suaveness, but and maybe it's just the way that, I mean, it feels like the film technology has even gotten better. I mean, this film's in color. There's more focus on, like, The Hustler was a real old school style movie where it was like not a lot of close-ups, where this movie like really captured his facial expressions. Roger Ebert said that Newman's smile made the movie. So I think just like understanding what his tools are, what makes him an attractive actor and a good actor, and what makes him fit the part, and just like leaning into those things.
Yeah.
You know, the willingness to get dirty, have your shirt off. I don't know. I mean, there's a real sexiness to Paul Newman, but a real humanness at the same time. Like he's a very attractive person, but there's been a lot of debate on whether like they've begun to focus too much on like how attractive people are, and it starts to lose like the everyman aspect. And I feel like Paul Newman, while your average prisoner is probably not going to look like Paul Newman, he gives a performance doesn't lose the humanity and doesn't make you feel like he's just a Hollywood actor.
I think you're right. I even think this film goes down as a tentpole in the history of how do we put films upon the shoulders of actors. Now, I will say there's a caveat to that where Paul Newman specifically asked the screenwriters because he was already attached to this film before the screenplay was made. He was just on board with the book, I guess. And he specifically asked the screenwriters to not make the character for Paul Newman's acting because he wanted to stretch himself. So I think just the idea that Paul Newman was proactively trying to expand his acting capabilities shows his dedication to growth. And also, I think he grew in the depth of emotion that he can show.
100%.
Even in this film, there was the unaliving scene in The Hustler, and that he cries in that film, and he gives
a really passionate monologue, which is good. But I think this movie is clearly a step in pretty much all aspects. He's weeping
at the feet of this prison of his boss Godfrey, and just at the brink of. I mean, it's very believable, and you can see in his eyes that he's a broken man that really doesn't care about what happens to him. So his face, I agree with Ebert. Like Ebert's always right. That's the thing about movies is Ebert is always. But then unless he goes back and changes, you know what I mean?
Every once in a while he tries to take a really weird take that. Maybe it's not even his fault. He just doesn't see the greatness in the movie right away. But as much as I said about George Kennedy is a lightning rod, but like this movie, it's not Cool Hand Luke without Paul Newman, and I think that's you could make The Hustler without Paul Newman. You couldn't make Cool Hand Luke without Paul Newman. I think that's when you really know that they're a movie star. When you're like, I couldn't imagine this movie with anybody else. You're irreplaceable. I don't even know whether George Kennedy, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Role, I don't even know whether he's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
He's a great actor, and it's a great performance, but I don't know whether he's irreplaceable. But I really have the feeling that you really get the sense that Paul Newman is like, this movie wouldn't have even been made without him.
Yeah, and again, like I said, he was already attached to the project before the screenplay was made, but the direction that they can make it, even just the character, the style of the character, I think, and this, Ben, I told you he kind of specifically wanted to stretch into a character that he's never stretched into before, but I think this will become a part of the ontology of Paul Newman's characters into the future. I think as we get into his roles where he's carrying more of the movie on his back, the more character films that he goes into, and films like that will show this nonchalant, cool, main character type of guy, almost like a charismatic, like a Robert Downey Jr. He's really on my mind right now, obviously, but to carry the weight of all these films. So, yeah, I see a lot of growth, and I'm wondering if we'll move on to another film after this, and then two more.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah, I'm wondering how big of a leap we'll see, or if it'll decline.
It's a 1 year, so it's Cool Hand Luke
68?
68, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Okay.
So this will be the closest we'll see them together. So
okay.
And I would almost consider that this would probably be his peak, and then I believe it's another 6 years, like 68 to 74, and then it's The Sting. So there's a little bit of a gap, but you could still maybe consider it kind of the same time period.
Yeah.
And then
Color of Money is just a whole new generation.
Yeah. Then it's like we're looking at Paul Newman differently because he's actually older, like 12 years older or so.
Yeah. So Luke's prison number is 37, which I found out was also a reference to Luke 1:37, which is for with God nothing shall be impossible, which is taken out of context, of course, but it's
interesting, the sense of I don't know. In some senses it's always weird with the Christian imagery thing as a Christian, because you're like, in some ways you're like, I'm glad people are like paying attention to the Bible, and like seeing it as something you can use, but then you're like, also if you're using it wrong, is that really like,
well, again, it's like, do you want them to know it, or do you want them to know it the right way? You don't want to be lukewarm, which is a great connection as well. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but then it goes back to, we talk about this a lot too. We review and like a lot of these movies that are like the anti-hero movies that aren't just about people who have things work out for them or make the right decisions. So you have to think about what is the value in watching movies. Well, but I think we always come back to it's the humanity you're watching. You're like seeing somebody else struggle and make mistakes like you make in your own life, maybe in a more exaggerated way, hopefully in a more exaggerated way a lot of times. And you're thinking about how these things that aren't always pleasant to think about, but then you realize, am I pushing some of these things? Am I ignoring things that I'm doing in my life? And could they lead to as destructive things as they are to these people? And the answer is yes. And from this way you could see destructive tendencies both in Luke, and that ends up with him getting killed, but also if you watch the police characters, or the prison guard characters, the warden, you could also see kind of destructive tendencies in them where they're in positions of power and can be seen abusing them. And it'd be really easy to justify based on saying, oh, these are just prisoners, or you could take lots of steps and not really be thinking, okay, what is the best ethical way to do this that is also still realizing that these are people who are being punished for something, so you can't be too lenient with them.
You're really stuck on like, we're the prison guards, right?
I don't really think that's what the movie's about, but
it's
an interesting aspect of the movie that you can think about.
They're the first,
first
podcast to take that angle.
The warden is somebody he seems to be like trying to foster. The warden is weird compared to the guards. The guards just seem like they're there doing their job, and they're not. There's not a lot of banter with them. There's the one guy who's like, "I'm sorry for doing this. I feel bad for doing this." And you can see their moral depravity too when they're like, "I've never shot a white guy."
Yeah,
he says that. So there's a little bit of like perhaps cultural
whatever you want to
criticism there.
Criticism, all right.
During the well, it is just a little tiny. It's not even like too blatant. It's just like, it's there.
It's a throwaway,
especially
line,
in the late 1960s.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'm
so yeah, it makes you cringe because you could be like, there would be a prison guard who would say that.
Oh, for sure.
In the 1960s, you'd be like, that would have actually happened. So anyway, maybe this is just a long roundabout way to say, like, you could pick any character in the movie. None of them are doing everything the right way. And a lot of times it's just showing them doing things the wrong way. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's you're just taking a great angle here. just the morality of the whole situation, because I don't know if it wanted us to think about that. But I mean, I'm 100% on board. This is why we have a podcast, Ben. This is because you bring out another side. But yeah, did you know that Paul Newman was only 11 years older than Joe Van Fleet?
Yeah. Do you think they did that on purpose? No, he was, or she was 11 years older than him.
Yeah. Is that what I said it backwards?
The character who played his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Supposedly she like specialized in playing older women than she was
younger.
But like, do you think they intentionally made it so that it was kind of like a flirtatious exchange? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I just thought like I would never interact with my mom. I mean, me and my mom and I interact in our own unique way compared to everyone else in the world. But this was, I felt
it was weird. It was a weird. It is not. It felt like they were implicating something, or just perhaps he had basically no relationship with his dad, and it seems like a really
the Oedipus complex.
Yeah, strange relationship with his mom, and maybe it's just that. Who's the guy who did the Oedipus? I can't even remember.
Freud?
It's Freud. Yeah, I can't even remember Freud's name. It's that late, but
it's like 11 o'clock.
But Freud was in vogue. I mean, he's still kind of in vogue, but he was more so really in vogue in the 1960s. So maybe authors were more obsessed with making the Oedipus complex a thing in movies. I don't know.
I don't know another angle I'd love to take, but yeah, I don't know.
It's also not really that obvious, so there may not really be a lot that's supposed to be dissected from it.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with you. What would you say your, just favorite part is?
Favorite part? Man.
It's a hard question.
It's a very hard question. I feel like I think I already said the plastic Jesus moment.
Okay.
He's
a good singer.
But I also think the end sequence is good. The racing sequence is good. Yeah, I don't know. What's your favorite part?
Yeah, mine's still the making the road.
Yeah.
That was still my favorite part, I think. What would you say?
It's a good balance of playfulness versus seriousness.
100%. What would you fix about this film?
Nothing.
Really?
Which makes me question why I didn't give it 5 stars.
I was about to ask that question. That's where I was leading to, Ben. I was thinking there wasn't really a scene in this film that I felt wasn't necessary or felt fit out of place or was not did not fit.
Like it was just everything went as it was supposed to. Yeah,
and it felt short. This was a 2-hour movie, and it did not feel like that. I felt pretty encapsulated the entire time, and almost in a Paul Newman way, just dragging along as time goes until we get to the end.
I don't think there's like a real logical reason why I wouldn't give it a 5 stars. It's just it still doesn't have that like 5-star pull on me.
So there's like something spiritual.
Yeah, there's like a sort of magnetizing effect a film has to have on me like to get 5 stars. But then I look back at some of my 5-star movies and I'm like, do I really think that
Kingsman?
Kingsman I did not give a 5 star. I haven't even watched Kingsman. Well, I gave Blade Runner 2049 a 5 stars, but now I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it in like 3 or 4 years. So I'm like, was it as amazing as I remembered? I don't know. But I can't change it because I obviously thought it was a really great movie. Or even a movie like Black Swan, where I was really blown away with it. But it also might be, if I rewatch it a couple times, I might think like, oh, it's kind of a little bit showy and gimmicky and maybe not actually as magnetizing as I had initially thought.
Yeah.
Whereas and even Donnie Darko, I'm kind of getting scared. But I've watched it like 6 or 7 times.
And you told me before this that Lahane might beat Donnie Darko. This is a big moment.
And I have to really think about this. I don't think I could ever say that before I at least watched Lahane a second time or a third time. Because I don't know. But Lahane is a movie that when I watched it, it had that gravitational effect on me. And it's a movie... To me, a movie that is 5 stars is a movie that you just can't stop thinking about. Can't stop shaking.
What movie can you not stop shaking about right now?
Well, it's Lahane, and
Okay,
I watched
still.
Lahane in January, so I
need
still
to
think
watch
about
it.
it.
The only thing is when you say it's not just you. Whenever anyone says like, "Oh, watch this,"
Yeah,
it's
you
the
really
best
hype.
thing ever.
Yeah,
And then it's not because we're different people.
because
I
I didn't go into Lahane being like, I think this will be my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We're different people, which is why you gave Cool Hand Luke a 5 and I gave it a 4. I mean, I like that there's finally a movie that you rated higher than me. I appreciate that.
We've had a few of those, right?
No, we definitely have. And even I think I've been making my list and I'm like, I really like Seven Samurai. Like, it's an amazing movie. It's well crafted.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like it doesn't have that magnetizing pull on me.
Old Japanese men going. "Rah!"
I know, but to you, it's like one of your absolute favorite movies. So I like that. I like that you know, we can both respect the art form, but like there's certain movies that just stand out differently based on us being different people.
It's so hard being analytical in such a subjective realm.
Yeah, you start to realize that with like music and everything. Like nothing is truly. You want to have this like, or at least if you have a mind that's
you have a mind
like mine, you really want to like be objective about things, but then sometimes you don't want to be objective. You want to be a little bit rebellious. But then if you look at my top, movies, the movies that I'm considering, they're like none of them are like really oddball selections. Like they're all like relatively highly regarded. Like I don't really have like a rebellious taste by any means. There's a few thrown in there that are probably like a 5-star movie that I would say very few people would probably give 5 stars would be like a movie like Drugstore Cowboy. Like, I mean, if you watch Drugstore Cowboy, you probably like it, but I'm not sure. I think you'd probably give it like 3.5 stars.
Really? Okay. So
Yeah.
very different than you.
Yeah. But like at the same time, there's obviously something about it. Again, it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about just how we come to these conclusions in our head. And like
the only way to know is to check our neural synapses.
Yeah.
Neuralink will do that for us.
And then at some point we're like also stubborn where we're like, well, I gave this 5 stars 2 years ago, so
I'm not backing
down on it. Like I would be caving to some sort of not even real pressure by not even like there's nobody who's like gonna be bent out of shape if I were to like people like you shouldn't have rated Drugstore Cowboy a 5. Like no, there's no actual person who's gonna like be upset about me rating it that way. But
yeah, I mean,
in your head, you're like, am I being honest about this thing? And it's actually not even that big of a deal. So anyway, being very overly philosophical about movie ratings right now. The main thing is that we love movies here at the Movie Vault.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, most of the time.
The thing is, I'm still a TV show guy, and I think that's just in my DNA. I think the TV show gene. I
think you started young, you started strong, and I think that's great. Yeah, we need TV show guys.
I started young with the TV shows. Yep,
The Simpsons, and I started watching Rick and Morty season 7, and I'm having a really hard time with the voice change.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's that bad.
It's not bad. It's just it bugs me a little bit.
You can tell.
Yeah, I can tell. But it's like it is pretty good. Like I won't say it's like bad. I just am more frustrated with Justin Roiland. I'm like, well, could you just not have done anything?
Just keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like could we just not
for the sake of my enjoyment?
Yeah,
not for any other reason. Is that what you're saying?
But or I'm annoyed at Adult Swim for not just canceling the show. Like
they couldn't. They already pre-ordered like contractually. After season 3, they pre-ordered through season 10.
I suppose there's writers and stuff and lots. I mean, Justin Roiland wasn't doing all the writing. There's tons of people doing writing on Rick and Morty. Yeah. So it's not just Justin Roiland's job at stake. It's like all these other people.
Quite a few Simpsons writers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can see it. I mean, right now, there's a character back. Do you want me to spoil? Have you seen season 7?
Mm-hmm.
There's a character who makes a return. Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Oh, great. Great. He's great. Well, he's in every season anyway.
In a surprising way.
Great.
No, not really a surprising way, but it's funny. So, I don't know. I like season 6, but I've watched Rick and Morty seasons so spaced out that I sometimes don't even... I know there's certain episodes that I'm like, that I hate.
Yeah.
And certain episodes that I love. So.
Well, that's life.
That is life. I think that's more of the thing with TV shows, unless they are like a really coherent plot. Like they're a lot more of a roller coaster ride.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right. Because I mean, you can just completely flip the whole story arc from one season to the next. So or you can try to recapture the glory of season one every following season. What kind of movie highlights do you have? Unless you have anything else to say.
I don't really have a whole lot else to say about this movie, other than it's amazing and you should watch it. And my takeaway is it's a really interesting look at being directionless. And if you find
Do you feel directionless, Ben?
No, I don't. Not in the way that Luke does.
I agree. You don't look directionless.
No, I actually don't feel directionless.
Okay.
Sometimes, here's something we didn't talk about. Do you think being a loner also, like...
Are you a Sigma male?
No. A lot of people who fall into this directionless category, at least that are portrayed in movies, are people who, like, are alone. They don't have... Like, he even had a relationship with a girl in Kentucky or something like that, and then he couldn't keep it up.
Yeah.
It's like this natural instinct to, like, I have to be by myself. But I don't think being by yourself and, like, there's a big push. I'm glad you brought up the Sigma male thing. There's a big push
I guess,
to be completely self-reliant, especially aimed towards men. Actually, it's aimed towards both men and women. So with women, there's the feminist movement. Like, you should be independent. You shouldn't have to rely on a man. But there's sort of a pendulum swing to the men from the feminist movement. They're like, well, I think women are trying to use me, so I'm going to try to use women, and then also be a loner and live by myself and only really use women as objects, and because they're going to break my heart. Is
that a pendulum swing, or is that always been the case?
Yeah, I think it's always been the case. Maybe it's just like it feels like a pendulum swing, but it's not really.
It could be. I don't really pay attention to our culture.
It's just it's very there's corners of the internet that are really trying to take men in this way.
My news comes from Tim Dillon. I'm very limited in my access to the world right now.
So I think a movie like this doesn't necessarily. I mean, Luke also is not like these guys. He's not like materialistic. He's not necessarily trying to use people in the same way. But it does show that, like, we need other people. Like, other people hold us accountable, and other people, I mean, they don't give us ultimate purpose, but they give us certain purposes.
Sub-purpose. Do you think Drive came out of this movie?
I think you could link it to Drive.
American Psycho.
I don't know. I don't see it as much American Psycho.
I'm just wondering, is the Sigma male posture in this
film?
I
mean, it's like very loose because, I mean, Drive, the character is not, I mean, he's like suave and cool. That's like the main similarity. He's not really a whole lot like Cool Hand Luke. Although he does do things that he does things more for other people than Cool Hand Luke does, though.
Yeah.
In Drive.
What's like a character or a film that would be similar in your head
to Cool Hand Luke? Yeah. Is there a movie that's similar?
I don't know. Shawshank. I'm just thinking of prisons.
Shawshank is not like
Cool Hand Luke. Shawshank is such a more happier ending.
Yeah, and Shawshank is like the ultimate stereotype of it's great. It's a great stereotype of the prison movie, but it is like the classic like trope of things that happen in prison movies.
Don't drop
I'm sure it's building off of lots of other movies that came in between Cool Hand Luke and
and we even did A Man Escaped for one of our podcasts, the 50.
But that was like an intense amount of purpose. Like, I'm getting out of here so I can go back to being with my family and being with, So
Cool Hand Luke is unique. Certified.
I mean, maybe Cool Hand Luke is kind of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
How so?
Ferris Bueller sort of is, in some senses, he doesn't seem too committed to his girlfriend. He sort of maybe has this plan to help his friend out, but he's a pretty selfish guy, and but he really has a plan though. That's really where the divide diverges. I just saw it.
So
close
Divergence,
to this.
you said?
Yeah, Divergence is really like Cool Hand Luke. I don't know. If I did a lot of like looking into it, I might be able to find a movie that I'd be like was like Cool Hand Luke. But it does seem to be very sort of its own thing.
So you've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off since we left?
I might have talked about it on I think I talked about it in the last episode. Okay. There's really only one movie I've actually watched and finished.
Is it the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah. It's Borat, Cultural Leanings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. And I hate to say it, but it's very funny.
Okay. What was the best part?
The best part was when Borat... probably the national anthem, like when he was like saying like he was gonna wipe Iraq off the face of the planet, and then he sang the national anthem, but he's like, I'm going to sing Kazakhstan national anthem to the tune of the American national anthem. And it was like in an actual like arena of people who are like super conservative.
Oh, great.
And like I think it was like
was this like actually filmed in front of real people?
So Borat, from what the research that I had done, it's mostly like there's not like a really cohesive plot in Borat, but it's mostly like Sacha Baron Cohen like pranking people the entire time. Like it's I could see some of it being staged, but I think some of it was actually like people were not expecting it. There's a few big names who were in it that had to be made aware of that it was happening. But other than that, I think it was like relatively to some extent not staged. I mean, some of it seems like it'd be kind of hard to do not staged. Like when he's naked and he's wrestling his producer who's also naked. They blur out the stuff, but
that's exciting.
It was a good movie. It's funny. It also seemed very 2006, but I know they made one recently, so I'd be curious to see like whether they were more. I don't know. It seemed like compared to our politically correct times.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure
they made the second one, right?
Yeah, they did. So I don't know.
And that was.
I'm sure he leans left, but like he doesn't. I mean, it seemed like he was not afraid to make fun of anyone.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad that.
I'm halfway through Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries. It's good so far. Okay. And then I'll probably watch Poor Things. I don't know. I gotta stay up till 3 or 4.
Yorgos Lanthimos, right?
Yeah.
I watched 2 theater films this week that I couldn't miss. Despicable Me 4, which I thought was actually pleasant. It's fun. I mean, it's not as deep as the first one's about fatherhood and taking up that charge.
Yeah.
This one really had no emotional depth, but it was so funny. It was hilarious the entire time. Just goofy. And I'm all for it. I want them to make 20 Despicable Me films.
Yeah, I don't think they can really ever make enough.
And then I watched A Quiet Place Day 1. Great. I mean, it was all right. I wouldn't say great. Okay, it was all right.
I've heard it's like really good quality, just not a lot of anything that makes it like really stand out.
Exactly. It doesn't add anything to the franchise. It's pretty much the same thing as the other Quiet Place films. You know, they find out that they can't talk, so then they stop talking, and then they have to survive the whole film. And there's a cat. And it's a little bit sadder. You know, it's a more tragic film than the other films. Yeah, that's all I'll say, because it's a new film. I don't want to spoil it. So.
Yeah, I'll give you updates on the next episode on how I think Ingmar Bergman did.
Yeah. And what's the next film? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
1968.
I've watched it, but it's been a while to the point where I can't even really remember what it was about. So,
it's probably someone in also.
You know how I watched this last movie?
Bootleg?
Internet Archive, and I found a version of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid on Internet Archive.
I just use my downloader still. I need to get you invited.
You need to get me on the downloader.
Sorry, I need to contact.
We're 100% ethical when it comes to watching movies at the Movie Vault. Movie Vault canceled. Well, that would be kind of hard to do to us.
That's true, because we're so famous.
Yeah, we're so famous.
But wedding season is almost over. We got one more tomorrow. Well, I do. I don't know if you're going.
I have one later. Yeah, I won't be able to be there tomorrow because I have work. But I have a wedding in November, and then my wedding season will be officially done.
Yeah, lots of weddings.
But night shift life now.
Yeah, you start tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. But I'm staying up late tonight so that I can sleep
Desensitize
later.
your sleep schedule.
It's gonna be bad.
Hmm.
I'm breaking up my circadian rhythm. It's
Good.
probably not gonna be fun.
Yeah, well, good luck to you. You'll need it.
And you'll need that as well in all of your adventures.
We will see. I don't know. Med school starts in 8 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very close.
Mm-hmm.
Very close.
So let's see if we can get Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid done before then.
Yeah.
That'll be good. Then we have to start thinking about our next arc before. Anyway, we always do all of our business.
Well, we only see each other when we're doing the pod. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, kind of.
Kind of, because like in a lot of contexts, like when we're around each other, we also have to be doing other things. So we can't necessarily do movie vault planning.
Well, that's just life. We're both going to be fathers soon, right?
Yep.
I'm just joking. I can't say that.
Well, our listeners don't know us that well.
That's true. Little Timmy's coming.
Little Timmy.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited.
All right. Joking. Well, make sure to hopefully none of our listeners. Well, maybe we have some prison listeners. You ever thought about that? They have tablets in prison now.
What? Like little iPads or like Kindles?
Like tablets. They're not iPads, but they're some sort of tablet.
Like a Kindle
and
Fire?
like they watch like Pluto TV and like Tubi and stuff.
What does this world come to?
I know. They gotta pacify the prisoner. You can't have fights all the time.
So you're saying an ordinary teenager is no different than a prisoner on a day-to-day basis?
Possibly, yes.
Wow. They're both watching Bluey.
Yeah. And I won't say how or where, but I have insider information on this. So that's why I'm saying it was such a fact.
Okay, interesting. Well, okay, Emma. I'm just joking. All right, well, buy Hedman England Agency Insurance.
Yep.
Was it 614-486-7300?
614-486-7300.
Tell them Ben and Zach sent you. So if you have any prison insurance, which doesn't exist,
if you need insurance while you're in prison for something that you own, you can't take with you.
Or home or business. So
in prison, you bought an ATV and now you're going to prison. You can't take it with you.
Yeah, or a child or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever.
All right. Well, would you like to close the vault?
Sure. I'm Cool Hand Luke.